talking on our last segment about home equity conversion mortgages, or commonly known as reverse mortgages. Let's talk about the process now. When can you start getting your money, and what are the rates associated with these mortgages?
Okay, Jeff. Basically, as I said previously, this is just a mortgage. It's going to be very familiar, the process. Basically, you're providing an application, you're providing the various documents one needs. We go through an approval process, you have your home appraised, and then we have a closing, just like any other mortgage. The only other requirement is that you have to either in person or over the phone, spend about 40 minutes with a counselor just to make sure you fully understand the program, and that's at a nominal cost, around $125 or less. So that's the only difference. That's the process.
All right, so in my regular mortgage, you go in, and this is one thing that I learned yesterday, reverse mortgages, everybody knew that you had a house, you had equity, and then you get the money. That's not the same anymore. You don't have to have the house, you can buy a house with this.
Yeah, that's one of the little known things. And since 2009, the program's been modified so that you basically, if you're 62 or older, can purchase a home with as little as 50% down and never have to make a mortgage payment. I mean, I know it sounds unbelievable, and that's the hardest part I have talking to people about this. The old adage, you know, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is not in this case. I can tell you from personal experience, I did that myself when I purchased my home here in Florida. And I used a little different method. I didn't take all the money that I was entitled to take. I used a small portion of the money that I have available to me, and to do fix-up, paint, furniture, that kind of a thing. And the remaining money that I have available is now sitting there as a line of credit that I can draw on basically by sending in a fax and getting my money within 5 days in my account. And that money is tax-free. So, you know, this is something people need to hear about.
And there's one thing when you said tax-free, also the interest accrues as you go home, you're not making any payment. You do not get a current deduction for the mortgage interest now because you're not making any payment, unless you do.
That's correct.
It's at the end when the mortgage comes due, when you get rid of the house, you sell the house, you pass away, then you have the accumulation of interest. Let's talk about some of the rates. That's still, you know, everybody's concerned about, you hear in the ad, 30-year mortgages to this and fixed to this, and what are some of the rates associated with that?
Considering all the benefits, the rates are only slightly higher than you would have with a conventional mortgage. You know, this particular moment in time, a fixed rate is about 5%. A variable is about 3 3/4. You do have an additional fee, and that's again an initial and annual insurance premium that gets added into the loan. It's not out of pocket. That's as we talked about in the previous segment. That's what makes sure that you never have to pay back more than your house is worth when the time comes, which is huge. It could be hundreds of thousands of dollars of insurance value, part of this whole program.
Now, when you have the line of credit portion, if you don't take the whole thing, that's where the variable comes in, because you don't know what you take, because that can change at any given time.
Right, that is a requirement. That is a requirement if you're going to use the line of credit vehicle. It will be a variable program. If you're purchasing a house and taking the total sum available to you, that typically people do a fixed program. But again, we have a number of other choices, and certainly we'll sit down with anyone and go through those various options when the time comes.
Let's talk about the misconceptions about the reverse mortgage. We talked about a few of them. What are some of them, some of the misconceptions about these reverse mortgages?
Yeah, thank you for asking the question. You know, that's the other harder part of my job, is that there is a lot of myths, there are a lot of misinformation. Basically, sometimes, you know, people say, well, I heard that someone told me I shouldn't, this mortgage isn't for me. Or this mortgage is only used as a last resort. You know, somebody that has run out of all their money at the end of their retirement, and that's what they need to go do this. Other people say, oh, gee, it's too complicated, or it's too expensive, or I have to give up title to my house. None of those things can be further from the truth.
Because you still own your home.
You never give up title to your home. You always own it. When the time comes to leave the home, either permanently or sell it, or unfortunately deceased, basically the home is sold. You pay off the loan, Any money left over, just like you would with any other conventional loan, now becomes available to you or to your heirs or your estate. So from all aspects of this, those myths that existed before, as it related to costs, yes, the costs were much more expensive in the early days of the loan. Those costs have come down dramatically. And to have all of this capability, to have all this money available to you, have the tax-free aspects, it's really, really very, very little money to pay to have this benefit. So, if anybody sits down and we work the numbers out, they'll realize that this is an awesome program.
And you mentioned it, and in your name, retirement, and this is the perfect vehicle, and in another show we'll have to go into more depth. But just basically, let's talk about, could be part of a retirement plan when you talk with a financial planner and the client about using these money, because you now free up cash. You get cash, could invest it and free it up.
Jeff, you've got it, and that's absolutely right. This is what I'm doing with my home equity conversion mortgage, exactly that. We sit down with financial planners all the time. They sometimes don't consider, there's $3 trillion worth of equity here that's just sitting idle. So if people are living 30 and 40 years into retirement, they've got to consider using housing equity as an overall strategy, mixing housing equity with portfolios that they may have or other investments. And by using these in a coordinated fashion, I can actually prove you'll add years to your retirement money and a higher probability of success that you will not outlive your funds. And
for our viewers, and we'll have a financial analyst on, a financial planner on in another show, but just basically, it's what you keep at the end of the day. So if you're taking, say, $150,000 and investing it and making 8%, which is not unheard of, yes, there's risk if you do in stocks, but if you make 8%, but you're only paying 5%, you're to the good, 3%, so that's a good financial strategy.
It gets better than that without getting into it. I think we'll save it for another segment, but essentially the real key is leaving as much money in the highest earning vehicle you have, and we can demonstrate that when the stock market is down, for instance, taking money from your housing equity leaves money there to recover. So when the market comes back, you make back the money you may have temporarily lost on paper. Plus, again, there's the tax-free aspects, which can't be ignored.
One last thing I want to talk about, and you mentioned it in divorce. So let's just talk, we have about another minute, just quickly how we can do it in a divorce.
This is an interesting thing. When someone gets divorced, and it's happening now, even to boomers and seniors, the kids are out of the house, they've decided now to start a new chapter in their life, it becomes the problem of property settlements. And so typically a house is involved, and in order to give the departing spouse their share, many times the house has to be sold. Well, if you use a reverse mortgage, essentially equity can be taken, 50% of the equity can be taken out of an existing home that's paid off, giving it to the departing spouse. The departing spouse can use that 50%, purchase another like property, and both people now are living in two separate homes. They have not, there's no impact to their cash flow. They're not paying any debt because, again, the reverse mortgage doesn't require payments. And the huge problem in a gray divorce, as it's called, is solved. So, again, another great use for this vehicle.
Well, that's something to talk to Tammy Saltzman, who is on Divorce Connection Network, dealing with Michael, and usually one of the spouses will stay there for the kids. Or I lived there my whole life. It's the only house I know, so this is a good vehicle. So in the last 30 seconds, how can people get in touch with Michael?
Happy to talk to anyone about home equity conversion mortgages. You can reach me at 772-212-1450.
Well, I thank you, Michael, for coming.
Thank you, Joe.
Interesting. We have plenty more we can talk about. Again, my name is Jeffrey Schneider. This is We Got Your Back Taxes. Until next time, see you.